Assalamualaikum and good day. Today my group will be presenting about the ownership and confidentiality. Audit files are typically owned by the audit firm or auditors who create them. These files contain sensitive financial information and work papers related to an organization's audit. What we can understand about sensitive financial information is usually information about the sales or expenses or acquisitions of the company that should be kept confidential outside of the organization. Therefore, the audit firm or auditors who create these files are responsible for maintaining and safeguarding these files for a specific period. This specific period is often already set by legal and regulatory requirements. This is to ensure that the audit process is effective and also complies with auditing standards. One of the purposes we apply confidentiality principle to accountants is to ensure confidential information is not disclosed outside the organization without proper and specific authority, unless there is a legal or professional right or obligation to disclose that specific information, which will be explained later. Next, to avoid confidential information obtained by certain third parties to use that information for their personal gain. How these third parties can obtain this confidential information is because of professional relationships. So the main idea of us applying this confidentiality principle is to ensure and confirm that confidential information of the company or organization is not disclosed outside of the organization. However, there may be some circumstances which require accountants to disclose confidential information. The first one is disclosure is permitted by law and authorized by client or employer. This means that whatever information they are trying to disclose is allowed according to the law, and the client or employer already authorized or allowed this disclosure. Next, disclosure is required by law. For instance, when we have to submit documents during a court case. For example, if the audit firm is involved in a court case or any legal cases which require them to submit documents of the company that contain sensitive information, then this disclosure is allowed as it is required by the law.
Next, when not restricted by legislation, there is a professional obligation or right to disclose, which are to comply with the quality review of the institute, to reply to a question or investigation from the disciplinary committee, the institute's investigation committee, or any other regulatory body, to defend in court the professional interests of a professional accountant, and to comply with technical standards and ethics requirements. Next, when determining whether to reveal information, important things to think about are as follows. First one is whether the clients or employers' consent to the professional accountant disclosing information could be harmful to the interests of all parties, including third parties whose interests may be impacted. Second, whether to the degree that it is possible or relevant data is known and supported by professional judgment must be used to determine the appropriate disclosure in situations involving unsupported facts, inadequate information, or unsupported conclusion, if any, the type of communication that is expected and to whom it is addressed, and last one, if the recipient of the communication who are being addressed are the right ones.
Next, I'll explain about the confidentiality of audit files. Confidentiality of audit files is a critical aspect of the auditing process. Audit files contain sensitive financial and operational information about the audited entity, and ensuring the confidentiality is essential to maintain the integrity of the audits. There are a few key points to consider regarding the confidentiality of audit files. The first one is professional standards. Audit professionals are bound by professional standards and ethical guidelines require them to maintain. The first one is the confidentiality of audit files, and the second one is the information they obtain during the audit process. These standards are typically established by organizations such as IAASB, International Auditing and Assurance Standard Board, and AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. The second one is restricted access. The access to audit files should be restricted to authorized personnel within the audit firm and, in some cases, external parties such as regulatory authorities. Access should be limited to those who have a legitimate need to know the information for audit purposes. The third one is non-disclosure agreements. Audit firms often require their staff and third-party service providers to sign non-disclosure agreements. legally obligate them to maintain. The first one is confidentiality of audit files, and the second one is information contained within them. The fourth one is secure storage. Audit files should be stored in a secure and controlled environment. It is to prevent unauthorized access, and it may involve physical security measures for paper documents and electronic security measures for digital files, including encryption and access controls.
Next, data encryption. When transferring audit files electronically, first, important to use encryption to protect the data during transmission. Second, help ensure that the information remains confidential while in transit. Moreover, retention policies. Audit firms typically have policies and procedures in place for the retention and disposal of audit files. These policies ensure that files kept for the required period but are also securely destroyed when they are no longer needed. Furthermore, client confidentiality. Auditors must also respect client confidentiality. They should not disclose any information obtained during the audit without the client consent, except in specific situations where disclosure is required by law or professional standards. Next, legal and regulatory requirements. Some legal and regulatory requirements may override the general principle of confidentiality, such as when authorities request access to audit files for investigative purpose. Auditors must be aware of these requirements and obligations. Last but not least, work papers and documentation. Detailed work papers and documentation within audit files should be carefully maintained, as they provide a trail of evidence for the audit findings and conclusion. These documents should be clear, organized, and subject to the same confidentiality requirements as the entire audit file. Maintaining the confidentiality of audit files is crucial for preserving the trust and credibility of the auditing profession. It helps ensure that sensitive financial and operational information is protected and that audits are conducted with integrity and objectivity. Hence, ownership and confidentiality are crucial for maintaining audit integrity and protecting client information.